The other two speakers, if you would, just come back up to the front. We'll have a question and answer session as the last part of our program tonight. We'll have approximately 15 minutes if we end our program as we scheduled and try to do it at 9 o'clock. While they're coming out here, let me say a couple of things. The first is that if it's not been made clear previously or in the materials you've seen or heard from us, the Berkshire Alliance for Sustainable Energy is in the process of petitioning, that is to say, going out and meeting as many, ideally all of the town residents as we can, and to discuss this issue, but also to ask people who are willing to join us to sign a petition, which we will present to the town board, asking the town board to pass a law, not a resolution, and create a moratorium to give this community a chance to both understand what might happen to it and prepare for it. Things like detailed road plans and matters that the town board and others have been looking at but aren't yet completed. If you're interested in signing that petition, there are two nice ladies at the table in the back who have those petitions. We would be grateful if you would sign it. You have to be a Berkshire resident. You have to be over 18, and you must not have already signed the petition previously. In addition to the petition, which is at the table with the two women staffing it, at the far back near the stage, there are tables with various brochures that we refer to tonight. I encourage you, if you're interested, to stop back by and pick them up and also help yourself to some of the goodies after the program is over. And I think, Craig, are the things that you have here available for people to take or not? Okay, I just wasn't sure. There were big stacks. Okay, before we turn it over for question and answer, we would like guidance from you, briefly. Our anticipation, our hope is that this can be an ongoing educational process for our community. As we've indicated, that we'd be delighted if the folks who are in favor of bringing gas drilling to Berkshire would organize such a program so that we could attend and listen and evaluate what folks that they might wish to bring to us could do. We also would like to consider the possibility of ourselves doing additional public sessions, group town meetings like this, and in that regard, we have a little list of possible subjects, and we'd just like to see by a kind of a quick show of hands if you're interested in us bringing people here who are knowledgeable about these subjects. So we'll do our little duet again. If you don't mind, if it's something that you think you'd be interested in, just raise your hand. We'll go through this quickly. And Jerry, if you guys could just take some notes about what people are interested in. Would folks be interested in hearing more about the issues of truck traffic and road use in Maine?
Safety and emergency services.
Impacts on human health.
Impacts on animal health.
Effects on your property insurance and related homeowners question.
Property values.
Mortgages and the potential difficulties or not of either getting a mortgage or someone buying your property getting a mortgage.
Social impacts including influx of out-of-state workers and displaced renters.
I'm not sure what that means. Analysis of Pennsylvania well performance data. There's quite a bit of actual hard data out there available now about what's happening in Pennsylvania that cuts through the left-wing camp the other can. So that certainly is feasible.
And the final one, what to do if you signed a lease before you knew what was involved in gas drilling?
Okay, thank you very much. If there are other subjects, if there are other things about which you're concerned or interested, and you would like to talk to us, please do. I encourage you to do that. But now, I want to turn things over to these three speakers and to you, the audience, and I'll try to moderate the questions and answers. I would just ask you, please ask a question. Please don't make a statement. We understand that people have powerful feelings, pro and con, but this is an opportunity to find out more from these folks. And so I would be grateful if you would ask a succinct question. And you can indicate which person it's to go to, or just in general if you like. So the floor is open for questions. Yes, sir.
I'd like to know if any of the panelists have any information on waterless propane fracking.
Waterless propane fracking.
I've heard of it, but they still have to penetrate the aquifer and drill through it. But yeah, it's just using a different method than what they're using now with the water and chemicals.
Is there any significant difference in environmental impacts?
Well, I mean, I've been touring now with 5 guys that have worked for the industry, including Lee McCaslin, who's been since 1979, and he told me the main thing that people are missing is when they call it punching through, they're going through the bedrock to the water. So it doesn't matter what you use to get down there. That's where usually he says the disturbance is of turning black. That'll go away. But I don't think it matters what you use to get down there. Once you punch through and you're going to take the debris down. So I haven't heard any super huge pro or cons, but if it ends up being easier for the industry and safer, then I would like to look into it myself.
I recommend that you look into it because there are a lot of benefits to that method.
Yeah, I remember it being brought up originally because it saved water. Early on, the big issue was the fire factory uses a lot of water. People are concerned it's going to dry upstream. But that issue is kind of went to the wayside. SRPC has done a good job regulating withdrawals. And in the Northeast, we generally have an abundant amount of water. So it's only very special periods where there's droughts that the withdrawal would have been an issue. The LP was going to save water and the safe formations we used instead of using the water. So, but since the water issue has been less important these days, I haven't heard much about the LP anymore.
Which would also require a lot less truck traffic.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
A nice job of fear-mongering. But the turbidity issue, you can get the same turbidity issue drilling a water rock, correct?
Sure. Why does it?
So, I don't see where the difference with the turbidity is. You're saying the gas well will do it? Yeah, it's punching a hole in the ground. A water well punches a hole in the ground, crosses veins of water.
Sure.
So I don't see where that becomes such a big issue. And my understanding, the last I saw, EPA had cleared the Dimmick water.
I saw it too.
Here's an interesting-
After a long series of time.
Right.
But you can, Don Barber, nice civics lesson, but you haven't ever tried to get foil at Berkshire.
Excuse me, I haven't tried what?
You haven't tried to foil it at Berkshire. I've got so many outstanding foils now. I've talked to Mr. Freeman, and the only resort I have left is you have to sue the entity at a minimum fee for the attorney of $3,000. Robert Freeman can't do a thing other than offer.
Wait, did you ask? He asked me a question.
Yeah, well, it's nice that, and I do live here, by the way, folks. I have a great deal of interest in this. My well has been tested for methane at this point by USGS. And it needs to be vented.
Thanks, we need to move on to the main question. You can, yes. I'm sorry.
I just want to mention one thing about the turbidity. The gas drilling is a magnitude order of bigger operation than a water well.
Of course.
And therefore, you get a lot less turbidity with the water. With a water well, when you get the drilling cuttings, they just make a mound by your casing, several feet high. The gas drilling, they fill lagoons out of the cuttings. So it's just not the same ballpark and magnitude of disturbance.
Back to Mr. Barber.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering there, before you draw that wire, it was clear?
Well, I have the original testing data from Cabot back in 2008 with me, the pre-drill test. The water didn't come out discolored, had no odor in it, no hydrocarbons detected, that means zero methane. Matter of fact, every person there had pre-drill tests because the affected area was within 1,000 feet of the drilling, and they were all verticals. Not one well that was plugged, cement plugged, endemic area that the state said caused the problems was a horizontally hydrofraced well. It was all, they were vertical, they're all cemented shut right now. And here's the problem. The problem there happened 4.5 years ago. The water's still coming out discolored. If that was something from the original drilling process, that would have settled down a long time ago. And his answer to this one is, if you call the ATSDR, that's the federal agency, they still have an active open investigation endemic. The other problem we had was on film, none of the EPA people that came in and said, your water's safe to drink, safe to use, safe to bathe in, would drink the water. Not one. There's 5 on film. They refused to even touch the water. So the issue is not, hey, I don't trust the federal government any more than anybody else does here. So that's the issue. I don't care what they said. I know one thing. I have 3 documents signed by the CEO of Cabot right here. You can look them up, the consent orders, there's 3 of them. And every one of those say they contaminated the water for these 19 families and they have to fix it. All 3 of those. So it's not me talking, that's the state DEP before the current one that's in place right now.
Yes, sir. Right here.
All right, I'm Carl Briggs. I own a large property in this area, okay? And for your fact, I live here, right? Now, I've got 3 questions to ask. One is first to you. If I was to bring a bunch of papers in here and told you that they were from a Dr. Fu Manchu from the University of Boogie Boogie, would you believe me? No, would you believe me? That's what I'm asking you.
If they were verifiable documents, these are all verifiable documents.
Yeah, I could bring you a lot of verifiable
Well,
documents
I'll go
too.
as
You
far as
had York Valley. I took York Valley School. I was the one that bought the bus to put them down. Richard asked to go down. When we left that meeting down there, the first thing they said to me, they didn't know they did all this. Okay? Now, the second question. You have people losing...
Asking questions.
I thought you wanted these quick.
I do, and I like a question.
Okay? I mean, look, there are people here that are upset. There are people that live in this valley. Now, this second question I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to mean it. You people have moved in here. You moved in 4 years ago, right? You never lived in this community. So is Steve. Where's Steve?
I've been to the board meeting.
I'm glad to speak to you. But you people have come in here. Now, I've got a lady over on my road. I've got some people that can't feed their family. I've got people that drive the cars around because they can't afford it. Okay? From what he said, I didn't hear any of that down there. I've come up through a whole bunch of
Yes,
comments.
sir, you're not asking a question, you're making a statement.
What, you can't handle the heat now?
No, I would encourage.
You can't handle the heat, and you're the one that wants to tell us what to do? You've been here for 4 years. What is your intentions, like the Kennedys and Rockefeller? Are you going to buy us up for pennies to the dime? I'll tell you what, you're going to stand there, pants and dog past hell, Jack. You come over to my side of town. You come see them people.
Sir,
Run your mouth.
I understand your position, I think you're making both your point of view.
I'm explaining this to you.
No, but I'm going to turn to somebody else. Happy to come up and chat with you afterwards.
We're not here to fight. We said at the beginning, all we wanted to do is present you with some information. If you don't like it, that's fine.
I have no one-sided information. Oh, Craig Nation, 45 minutes of positive stuff. You had 45 minutes of negative stuff. So what's the difference?
And you know what?
Make arrangements to use this building and present your own material. That's perfectly
We just
fine.
presented it.
Down front.
And you can handle it.
Question down front.
And this lady just flipped him off.
You people here use natural gas in your homes. Raise your hand.
The whole city does.
There's nobody in Berkshire that has natural gas.
Is there a question over here? Is there a question over here? No, I'm sorry, I just need to get around out there. Somebody back here who hasn't asked a question.
I actually have a question. Todd, I listened to you in Caroline, when I was on.
I'm sorry, could you speak up, please?
This question's for Todd Miller. I listened to Todd talk about aquifers, and mostly this presentation, 2 or 3 years ago in town of Caroline, and the concern was the aquifer that is underneath Slater Road. And as I understand it, and I wonder about this water here, I guess you haven't tested it, but the water there is considered to be 50 years old. And I was just talking to Barry Goodrich about that. Who is on the water? So I wonder if you know what the average age would be in any well down here. And then the second question, this valley is a unprotected aquifer, unconfined, correct?
Mostly. That's why it's native. We haven't studied that.
And
Comparing it to other settings, I would say this is mostly on.
what is the likelihood of a spill on that from the gas industry or any truck that runs up and down through here? And if they did, say, a tractor trailer spilled milk, for instance, which would contaminate that aquifer if it got in it, what is the likelihood that it would destroy it? Because I remember you talking about Portland, and was it Paul Trinity, they had a 500-gallon spill up there, and they, Smith Corona, and they built them $1 million filtration system, and today they have never fired it up because it never made it there, and that's an unconfined. So what is the likelihood of that same scenario happening here? How much would it take to ruin this aquifer, and what is the likelihood of a truck going where if you don't? So, you want to answer that before I ask?
As far as groundwater age, the water is old in Caroline because they mostly have confined aquifers. It takes a while for groundwater to pass through the confined area. It takes decades. This being, I think, is an unconfined aquifer, has fairly recent young water, 1, 3 years old, maybe in that range. So it's all pretty recent water. 2, the distance of a plume of a contaminant dependent on each chemical. The Smith Corona gets, that was trichloroethylene, or also organic chemical, gets eaten up by bacteria and bugs. There are many chemicals used by the gas drilling industry that does not get eaten up by bugs, so it would go a longer distance. So some would, some will. So as far as the area of effect of a truck spill, the groundwater flow path in that typical valley goes from the valley wall to the stream, some sort of angle, north-south. It doesn't travel down valley very many miles, so it's a fairly short distance. So the area effect wouldn't be tremendous, but you have to look at every area individually. What's in the area affected? Is there high-density homes? Several tens of homes are affected? Is there a school? Or is it farmland? So it wouldn't be that bad.
And in all honesty, I remember you saying that it was held up in the soil. So it would be held up in the soil, and then it would take maybe a big snow melt to cause a flush. So it would sit there, say, for 2 or 3 years and possibly flush it.
Yeah. And there's those complications, right? You're saying trichloroethylene gets tied up in the unsaturated zone, and in an extremely wet year, the water table re-wets that zone, absorbs the chemical, and then shoots another spike for a year with a high snow melt here or precip here. So there's lots of complications.
I got more. I got one for each one.
Okay, let's do it quickly because we're at the time when we need to close. So.
And Don, when we spoke about democracy and the republic, which I'm glad you said, because I know we say pledge allegiance before our meetings, and it's to the republic. Actually, our democratic process is in the vote, as you said, and majority rules. After that, it is the representative is a representative of the law or the Constitution, as Craig said. And and to follow that. Am I correct in stating that? Because I feel like, and it felt like in Caroline, that it was what they called democratic emergence, where the democracy was used to take control of the town board. And that process should not be allowed here in Berkshire or Caroline or anywhere in this state or this country. And that our board members are representatives of the law, and wouldn't we hope that they would, and that's why we have the DEC or the health department, the permitting agency.
I think that's correct. I think you got the question. So maybe if you just go ahead and answer that, and we can call the formal thing to a close. And I will say now, as I would have said earlier, all three of our speakers have indicated that they'd be happy to stay around if anything that they've said has generated questions or things that you'd like to discuss with them in detail. I encourage you to do so. So we'll let Don answer this question, and then we'll call this to a close.
So there's only one part of that question that actually is technical, and I'll answer that part. It is true that members that are elected to the public, just like anyone else in the citizen of the community, is required to obey laws. They're not above the laws. The processes that are set up for a republic are to be followed by everyone, whether you're a citizen or a town board.
Thank you, and thank all of you for coming, and I'm grateful for your interest, and for those of you who are concerned about our point of view, and I certainly respect your views. I would encourage you, I'm serious about this, if you think there are things that this community needs to know about the benefits of hydrofracking, then I would encourage you to do a session, whatever you would think is appropriate. For those of us who are involved in the Berkshire Alliance for Sustainable Energy, a big part of this exercise is simply having members of the community feel empowered enough that they can discuss their own future, because it is all of our futures. And through the democratic process resulting in the republic of elected town boards, we can control what happens here. We can decide to allow hydrofracking and welcome it for the benefit of the community. We can, and it's now perfectly clear in law, ban it entirely. And as an intermediate step, which has occurred in, I think, over 100 other towns in New York now, you can put in place a moratorium so that the community has more time to deal with it and make a decision after people have had a chance to fully consider the issue. Thank you so much for coming. If you would like to talk to the speakers, or if you'd like to talk to me or George or others, I encourage you to come up and do that. And we're grateful for your time, and wish you a good night. Thank you.